A very warm welcome to our webinar this morning. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Richard Muir. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive of Glasgow Chamber of Commerce, and a big welcome to you all to the Maximising Creativity with support from the STV Growth Fund with our partners, STV, and STV have been partner members of the Glasgow Chamber now for the last 10 years, certainly since I've been at the Chamber, and we're delighted to be working with the team today to discuss how businesses are using creativity in TV advertising to overcome challenges and the importance of creative thinking in building brands and brand awareness, and actually how STV are helping businesses to drive real results in your business. The format's going to be really quite simple this morning, and once I've stopped talking, I'm going to hand over to Victoria Allison, who's the Creative Director for Commercial at STV. Victoria's got a 10 to 15 minute presentation, and then we're going to hear from Angela Wylie, who's the Business Development Director and leads the direct team at STV. And then we should have time for a panel discussion for 10 or 15 minutes before Angela is going to wrap up. So please have your questions at the ready. And from a housekeeping point of view, if you're not already on mute, if you could put yourselves on mute, that would be great. And if you have any questions and you want to put them in the chat function, do that. Or when we come to the chat, just raise your hands or the virtual hand as well. So as I said, we've got a lot to get through this morning. We're going to hear from Angela, who's the Business Development Director, as I said, and leads the tech team. And by collaborating with the clients, the team ensure their business objectives are at the heart of the solutions and are always there to deliver strong results. Angela's got over 30 years advertising experience in media, having previously worked at the Herald and Evening Times for 10 years. Over her career, Angela has worked on hundreds of TV campaigns across a variety of topics and sectors, including planning and launching the famous People Make Glasgow TV campaign back in 2013, and it really doesn't seem that long ago, but we work very closely with People Make Glasgow as well. So we'll hear from Angela shortly. However, getting the discussion underway is Victoria Allison, who's the Creative Director of Commercial. Victoria leads the STV Creative Commercial team, the award-winning creative agency, if you like, within STV's commercial division, specialising in creating razor-sharp ad campaigns that get brands noticed on STV. Heading up a busy team encompasses creative, production, campaign management, design, and post-production. And Victoria oversees an average of 150 campaigns a year for a diverse range of clients, from first-time advertisers embarking on their very first spot campaigns to national and international brands seeking to align themselves with the STV brand and resonate with a Scottish audience. Victoria has over 15 years experience in the media sector, having studied film and television studies with English literature at the University of Glasgow before starting her career running training and talent development schemes at Scottish Screen and For Talent. Victoria discovered her passion for advertising and creative after joining STV's creative production team 8 years ago, where she moved into senior production and management roles in the commercial division before assuming her role in as creative director in 2018. So, Victoria, over to you.
Thank you so much for such a great introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here this morning to chat to you about creative. I have a presentation. I'm going to share my screen and take you through that. So just bear with me one moment while I get that set up. Here we are. Can everyone see that? Can I just get a thumbs up if you can? Perfect. Thank you so much. So as Richard said, I'm Victoria Allison and I'm the Creative Director in STV Commercial. I head up the STV Creative team, and we very much specialise in creating ad campaigns for clients to help them get the absolute best results out of STV's products and services. Creativity is very much at the heart of what we do, which is why I'm so happy to be able to talk to you about that today. But I should say that creativity for us very much is results driven, and it's all about being effective. It's not creativity for the sake of it. It's creativity that absolutely makes impact and drives results for our clients and converts to sales for them in the long run, because ultimately that's why they want to advertise, and that's very much the, the ethos that underpins all the great creative ideas that we come up with. So just to give you a little bit of a background on STV Creative and what we do, we are the in-house creative agency in STV, and we work with a whole range of brands, as Richard said, from first-time new to TV advertisers, very local Scottish businesses, right up to national brands and even international brands who very much want to do multi-platform campaigns and maximise STV's advertising products to align with the STV brand and really reach our audience in the right and most impactful way. So, bear with me one moment. For some reason, it's not allowing me to move on. There we go. Apologies. So we work with clients to get results through creative in 3 real ways. So firstly, we provide creative strategy that helps them get the absolute best out of our products. We use our insight to help our clients make sure that they're speaking to the STV audience in the right way, in the most effective way possible. And our specialist creative team develops standout ideas that really cut through in what can often be a cluttered marketplace for our clients. So today I'm going to be talking to you about how you can maximise your creative for the most impact possible and ultimately get results and grow your business and brand. And it's so important, but now more than ever in the current times we find ourselves in, to make sure that you're getting the very, very most that you can out of your creative and using it in the right way. So I'm going to take you through some tips that we share with advertisers that we're working with at STV Creative that help them absolutely maximise their creative and get the best results through what they're doing. And also share some examples of campaigns we've produced for clients where we've utilised these tips. And a lot of it is very current and relevant to campaigns that we've produced in the current climate. So I'll be able to talk a little bit to that as well, and how brands are pivoting and adjusting their creative messaging and their creative. Oh, apologies, for some reason the presentation is not liking to move on. There we go. So first of all, I would say to all businesses, it very much is over to you, and it starts with you, because any great standout ad campaign starts with a very strong brand. We can create an ad which will get the audience for you on STV, but you need to ensure that you've got a very strong brand underpinning that, so that your user experience and your journey for your customers is as cohesive and seamless as possible, and your brand is worked across all your marketing touch points. So for example, we can create an ad that drives people to your website, but if when the customers get to the website, the user experience, is a little bit clunky or doesn't quite work out for them, then that ultimately isn't going to convert to sales. So I would really, really urge you to just think about your brand and think about from the outset, before you approach an advertising campaign, what's your brand stand for? What's your tone of voice? How do you speak and communicate with your audience? What does your branding look like? And ensure that that's very much cohesive across all your touch points, as I said. So my next tip for you is to ensure that you really nail your message. And when we are working with clients, the campaigns that we produce all start with a brief. And it very much comes from the ideas that we develop and the creative routes we develop very much comes from that brief and the core message that the client wants to convey through the advertising campaign. So there's what I would say, particularly for new to TV advertisers who haven't been through the process before, there is such an appetite to jam pack lots of different messages into your ad, because of course, particularly when it's a branding campaign, there is so much you want to tell the audience about yourself, and your brands and businesses do so many great things. It can be really, really tempting to try and squeeze a lot in But we know through experience and research shows that that's not the most effective way to land a message and communicate with an audience via TV. You really need to strip it back to one key message, because unfortunately, if you throw loads of messages at your audience, at your viewer, they just take none in. So we would always very, very much encourage and stress the importance of getting your message right before you again get into the creative development process and thinking about what you want to say to the audience, what you want them to do. And ultimately, this kind of boils down to what is in it for your customer. That's what your message really should be. How do you differentiate yourself from other businesses who are perhaps doing something similar, other businesses in the same sector? So the next tip that we give is that less is absolutely more. And again, that goes back to my previous point about really avoiding squeezing too many messages in. But again, this doesn't stop just at your proposition that you're conveying or your message. It very much applies to the execution as well. You don't need to do a very complex ad. You don't need to do anything that is very overly clever, particularly if that route doesn't sit well with your brand and your brand ethos and tone of voice. I would absolutely avoid it. And sometimes a very simple, clear approach in the creative just really, really cuts through, particularly when there's so many different ads with similar messages or kind of loud, complicated approaches on air. So I'm going to show you an example of this and show you what I mean. Hopefully this will bring it to life. This is an ad that we actually made for STV commercial for our STV Growth Fund. So as you can see, in terms of execution, this is a very, very simple motion graphics approach, very clean. It's actually quite a departure from what we've done in the past for the STV Growth Fund, because if you're familiar with our ads, you'll know that we generally feature the account managers interacting with clients and also follow client stories and talking about the experience that they've had with the Growth Fund. But this ad we created as we were easing out of lockdown and businesses were starting to open up again. And we felt that, a very reassuring, very simple, clear message with a straightforward approach would actually cut through much more and stand out and have maximum impact. And I do believe actually from the results, Danielle, who's here today, will probably be able to nod or shake her head, but I think this one ultimately had the most impact and generated the most inquiries from any of the campaigns that we've done before. So again, just to highlight that sometimes a very, very simple approach is all you need to, to really convey that strong message, as long as your message is clear. Apologies, I'm having trouble moving on again. There we are. So my next tip that we often give to advertisers is to be unexpected. And this is very much about using your creative to stand out in your sector. And, what we always say is, zig where the market is zagging. Now, I appreciate I've used the Guinness surfer ad as an example here in terms of the image. And I'm sure you're thinking, well, very easy for a brand, a very established brand with a huge marketing budget to do something a little bit different and a little bit out there. And what's the risk to them? How do I apply that to my brand? So I've got an example of an advertiser we've worked with, McDonald's Flooring, where we've put that into practice.
McDonald's Flooring, Family-run flooring specialists fitting your style. Sounds good.
So in this approach, the client was very keen, as you can see from the creative, to convey the range of products that they have available. And the kind of go-to approach for doing that for a company in the sector would tend to be a showroom ads where we would showcase the products. But the client was very keen to do something creatively that was a little bit different and that would stand apart from what their competitors in the market were doing. So we came up with this idea, which was a little bit different and tying in with sound design, but created in a way shot against green screen, which actually still allowed us to work in a lot of different products for the client, but just simply in a different way, which would capture the audience's imagination a little bit more and really create a memorable ad to ensure that the viewers who would hopefully become customers would really remember the McDonald's flooring brand when they were going to buy new flooring. So there's also something in the approach that we took to this in terms of the production and the setup that's allowed us to be able to work in different types of flooring. It means that it could be adapted in future. So I'm going to talk about that in terms of how you can adapt your creative in a little bit. So yeah, I'm telling you to be different and be be bold and kind of zig where the market is zagging, but also I would say you need to be consistent when it matters. And when it matters, again, that is just bringing back to the importance of your brand and ensuring that your creative and your ad campaign, if it's going out in TV, that approach is worked across all your marketing touch points as well. So if you're doing activity on social, use images from your ad. If you're doing, newsletters, point of sale, ensure that your campaign that people are seeing, they're seeing absolutely everywhere, and it's all cohesive and joined up so that your message is just reiterated on every single platform that you're using. And again, that your brand is reiterated and consistent on every single platform that you're interacting with your customers on. And on this, in the McDonald's flooring ads, you may have noticed, I hope, at the end, that we created a new brand identity for the client. So as part of the process, they were very keen to do a logo refresh and a brand refresh. So our creative team and our designer came up with that new identity for them. And again, the client was very keen for that to be represented across all their touch points. So you can see here, it appears across their liveried vans. And again, they just make sure that that journey for their customers is consistent across every single touch point and every single place they're interacting with them for maximum effect and impact. The next tip, which I kind of alluded to there when I was talking about McDonald's flooring and the actual execution of the ad, is flexible creative. And this is more important in the current climate than ever. So when you're approaching your creative for television, I would very much bear in mind that you do really want, if you're investing in new creative, I would suggest you want to get at least 2 years worth of use out of that. So you want to come up with something that you can adapt as your messaging changes, as your brand develops, that can really be future-proofed in a certain extent. And a great way to do that is through using motion graphics or using animations, because these formats can very, very easily be updated at a later date. My next tip is don't blow, but don't squeeze your budget. Now, again, I hope this is a little bit of myth busting, because I think one of the barriers that we often experience with clients who are approaching TV advertising is that they think creating a TV ad and creating new creative will be very, very expensive, and it doesn't have to be. We provide very cost-effective creative solutions for our clients based on whatever their requirements and their brief is. As do a lot of agencies and suppliers these days. There are lots of ways that you can really create impactful creative without having to, invest in a budget that's like the new John Lewis ad. It's easy to use high quality stock footage. As I said, motion graphics or animation are often great routes to be able to, to really get something that stands out and resonates with an audience without you having to invest a huge amount of money. And I would also say, if you are embarking on creative, I would say you know, whatever you're spending in your media, about 10% of that to attribute towards your creative budget is really a decent investment. But absolutely don't think that you have to, particularly if it's your first campaign on television, you have to go all in, and your creative agency should be able to guide you on that. On the flip side, I would also say don't squeeze your budget and try to yield too much out of it, because when you do try and cut corners, inevitably it does show on television, and you know it's hard to miss. So I wouldn't squeeze your budget either. My next tip is that emotion really cuts through, and it's a real great way to make impact with an audience and ensure your brand is memorable. Again, I think for a lot of businesses, they'll think, how do I use emotion in my campaign? What does that mean for me? But I would bear in mind that, you know, emotion has a lot of ranges. So, for example, thinking about, you know, Scottish patriotism and resilience at the moment is so important to, you know, to the current times, and tapping into that through your ad campaign can be very impactful with the audience. Humor is a great way to tap into emotion as well. So it doesn't always need to be, you know, the big tugging at the heartstrings emotion, but it does absolutely really resonate with an audience. And this is some research from the IPA, the Institute of Practitioners of Advertising. You can see the source there, and they do a lot of research into how emotive ads and creative really resonates with an audience and gets effective results. So I was encouraged to go and check that out. But as you can see from their research, it shows emotive campaigns are 50% more likely to drive sales and profit. They just absolutely resonate with the audience and are very memorable. And if we think about it through, you know, brands that we rely on and go-to brands in our day-to-day life are really the brands that we really remember having a strong emotional connection to, and they've done that through their ad campaigns. And again, this is an example of an advertiser we've worked with, ACO, just to show you how we've translated that for a business.
Every home is filled with memories of the people we love, and ACO fire and smoke alarms are here to protect them. In Scotland, fire safety legislation is changing. We want to make sure every home is ready with first-class alarm systems by the deadline on February the 1st. ACO, fire and carbon monoxide detection specialists. Protect your family. Find an approved installer at aco.co.uk.
So as you can see, ACO wanted to embark on this ad campaign because it was a very relevant time for them to be advertising and to be marketing their product, as the legislation change that will be upcoming will mean that you know, smoke and carbon monoxide alarms will be mandatory in homes. So the way that we could have delivered that message could have been very factual, or it could have been, you know, almost like very stern, but we decided not to use that fear factor approach. We don't want to scare people. And again, we took a softer, more emotive approach, which has very much worked for the client. And that's all been about, you know, remembering, tapping into that emotion we feel around things we love at home, the people we love, and linking that with the product through the creative, because ultimately these smoke detectors will help keep those things and people we love safe. So that's everything from me. Thank you. I'm looking forward to answering any questions later on in the panel.
That's excellent. Thanks very much, Victoria. Some brilliant tips and techniques, and some great examples as well. And it kind of takes me back to when I worked with the team a few years ago on one of my proudest moments, which was a TV ad, which had very effective results for the company I was working with at the time. But yeah, no, great examples there, and particularly relate to the emotional point there about, you know, ACO and the forthcoming legislation changes. So we're about to hear from Angela, and I should have said actually before that as well that just after Angela speaks, we're going to hear from panel members. So we've got some great contributions from Alison Simpson from the Red Bus Bistro business, and Robert and Tony Flannigan from Sleepy Valley. So we're going to hear some real life examples of businesses that have benefited from the effectiveness of the STV Growth Fund. Before that, can I hand over to Angela?
Yes, thank you, Richard. I'll just try and share my screen. There we go. Brilliant. Firstly, I'd like to start actually by saying thanks very much to Richard and Alan for inviting us along today. It's great to be here. My name's Angela Wylie. I'm the Business Development Director at STV. I've worked at STV for just over 20 years and have worked on many, many campaigns over those years, both in the private and the public sector. So I've seen the impact that really good advertising and great marketing can have on local businesses. And as Victoria has already said, you know, creativity is the key. It's the message that you put out on screen that's going to make all the difference, particularly in television, obviously, because you never get that second chance to make that first big impression when you go into people's homes. That doesn't mean you have to spend a fortune. You know, we don't need big shoots, famous actors, licensed music. In fact, from a local level, what we find is that viewers are far more engaged naturally and they're interested in what's happening in their local area. So they really take notice when they see a local business on TV. So keeping it really simple with a direct message, we have found works best locally for return on investment. So let's have a look at the wonderful world of marketing. I hope I'm not going to get the wee Victoria glitches. No, we're moving. So as we all know, marketing is crucial for driving business growth. Put quite simply, you know, it can work in two ways. We have sales activation, which is about short-term gains, tightly targeted campaigns, promoting consumers to do something very quickly. So these kind of campaigns can provide short, significant spikes in sales, but the effects tend to fade quite quickly and brands can end up back where they started. Brand building is a much slower burn. You know, these messages tend to be more broadly targeted and they're designed to drive a deep, memorable and emotional connection with a brand. So whilst the short-term effects are more modest, the power is in the longer-term impact where the growth is driven steadily year after year. So that's why you'll see a lot of regular brands on TV in general. And at STV, the majority of our clients advertise with us throughout the year because they can benefit from that long-term impact that gives power to their business. The trust and credibility as well that they get from TV also helps all their other marketing activity work even more effectively, particularly social media, which is big just now. But trust, you know, can be quite an issue on social media. So TV helps push the social media as well, which is great. Obviously, over the last few months, it's been a very, very tough time for businesses. The landscape has changed drastically. And it's been difficult for clients with cash flow and low turnover. However, what this is proving is that advertisers that can continue and are able to continue spending will benefit greatly in the long run. So a recent study from Thinkbox actually showed that those who could continue advertising through difficult times would strengthen their brand and supercharge their share of voice, resulting in them primarily remaining front of mind for consumers, which is ultimately where all businesses want to be. An example of one of our local clients that did this really well, I think, is Digby Brown, who you may have seen on TV throughout the years. Digby Brown have continued to advertise throughout the past few months of difficult times. They were actually one of the first to react very quickly with their creative. If you think the situation with lockdown happened, I think around about 18th, 19th of March, and by the middle of April, Digby Brown came out on screen with a new creative. They wanted to adapt their advert so that they could illustrate their new way of working, and they showcased their staff working safely from home and dealing with their clients in a safe environment. I'll play the video, hopefully it will work.
Say hello to Moira in Ayr. Neil's in Carnoustie. That's Freya taking a call in Dundee. Andy's in Glasgow, Sarah's in Edinburgh, and Ryan's in Kirkcaldy. They're all discussing a case. Like all their colleagues, they're working remotely. Although our offices are temporarily closed, we are very much open. Digby Brown are still here to help, to answer, to reassure. Because keeping safe matters. And that's why you matter to Digby Brown.
So at the time, even though it's only a few months ago, you know, this creative was pretty groundbreaking actually, because no one had actually shown Zoom on TV, certainly not in Scotland. So Zoom was all very new. Seeing this kind of visual on television was new. Obviously now it's part of our daily lives. So in bad times, a brand's treatment of employees can influence the consumer perception and behaviour, which I think is really, really important. You know, recent research has found out that consumers believe staff welfare should be a company's first priority, particularly through these difficult times. With the current climate as it is, it's probably not surprising that watching TV has become a national pastime. After sleeping and work, time spent in front of the television is one of the most popular activities. In fact, we spend on average 3.5 hours every day sitting in front of our TV screens. The impact of this has resulted in an uplift of TV viewing, and monthly STV will reach approximately 82% of adults in Scotland, which is massive reach. Since March, we've actually reached around 90% of the population. So when times are difficult, people turn to what's familiar and comforting to them, and STV's heritage and trusted voice have resulted in our viewing figures increasing dramatically over the past 7 months. Our viewing share increase year on year versus all other channels is the highest, not just in Scotland, but across the UK. Our daytime audience has seen double-digit growth, with programmes like The Chase reaching over 500,000 people in Scotland. And our local STV News in particular has gone from strength to strength and has grown massively over the last few months, regularly doing over 500,000 viewers as well. It's actually the top news programme now in Scotland, which is super. If you're a soap fan or a drama fan, then you're not alone. Our soaps are doing really well. Coronation Street and Emmerdale are reaching around 650,000 people in Scotland, and our dramas do great too. Obviously, this is The Quiz. I don't know if anyone saw that, The Coughing Major. This reached around 500,000, but the best one, unsurprisingly, was our very own David Tennant, whom we all love. He does really, really well in Scotland. Anything with David Tennant and it's going to do great, so we can pretty much bank on that. We had Dennis Nielsen drama out in September, and it reached over 850,000 viewers. It was our top drama, and it also streamed 1.1 million times on the STV player. So we just need lots more David Tennant. So the Growth Fund, I'll tell you a little bit about the Growth Fund. The Growth Fund was launched in May 2018, and the aim of the fund is to use television to connect Scottish businesses with their consumers, but in order to help them do that earlier in their business journey. So allowing them to capitalise on all that great audience that I've just talked about and getting that reach across Scotland. So it was set up to help drive the Scottish economy by enabling businesses of all shapes and sizes to take that leap onto TV, and by doing so, obviously benefiting from the ROI that TV delivers. So far, we have funded more than 340 deals, and we've given away £10 million worth of funding. We have actually had 190 new businesses appearing on TV, which is great. A lot of them small local businesses appearing on television for the first time. Due to the success of the fund, we doubled it in March 2020. So we announced that we were increasing the fund to 20 million. So extending it out, that marketing support to get even more Scottish businesses involved in television. There are a few ways that you can work with the fund. And the most popular actually is our match funding. In fact, 95% of our members work with us on a match funding basis because they can extend their reach and maximise their budget in the most effective way. So basically, for every £1 a business invests, we will match £1. So this results in more powerful campaigns for local businesses with higher airtime exposure. Revenue share is also an option for some businesses, and we've also gifted some memberships. We present these to award winners through our partnerships. In addition to this, we also run the STV Growth Academy, and that's for those businesses who are not quite ready to take the leap onto TV, and businesses who are possibly in the early stages of startup and maybe looking at their marketing options. So we run events throughout the year. We invite guest speakers along, such as RBS, and also our Growth Fund members come along to these events too, and they share valuable tips and strategies to help the startups. So our aim is obviously to work very closely with our clients. We need to understand their challenges, their goals, their aspirations. It's really, really important that we just get right in about and really understand the clients. We want to be in it for the long run. So we've got clients, gosh, that we've been working with for 12, 14 years in television. It's not about coming on once and then bye-bye. It's about how do we build your business and work together. So how we do that across Scotland is we can reach customers across the whole of Scotland, or we can reach into our 4 different micro regions. So you can see here we've got STV West, STV East, STV Aberdeen and STV Dundee. So that means that we can offer solutions to smaller businesses who may just want to service into their own areas. We did conduct some research last year across our members of the Growth Fund just to gauge the success of their campaigns, and the results were very, very encouraging. Over half saw an increase in profit, and 75% of those said it was a minimum of 20% profit increase. 236 new jobs were created across the businesses and 22 new premises opened. We've got lots of different case studies from various clients across many different sectors, which we can share with you. I'll share one just now, which is from Kenny's Music. You may have seen Kenny's a great partner of ours, and they also appear on television in our case studies. But more can be seen on the website, or we can supply more of these if you just ask at the end. But we've got case studies from most sectors. So if you're in a sector that you think might be quite unusual for television, do ask, because it may be that we've got a client and we've got some experience that we've worked with somebody before. So that's it from me. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you found that quite interesting. I'm just going to welcome our panel. So thanks so much for joining us this morning. We've got Robert Flannigan and Tony Cox from Sleepy Valley, and we've got Alison Simpson from Red Bus Bistro. Hi guys. I'm just going to stop my share here if I can.
Yeah.
Hello. So I'll just give you a bit of background on each of the clients. Sleepy Valley is an independent bed specialist with a shop in Motherwell. They have been serving Scots for nearly 40 years. Fabulous. They became members of the Growth Fund in March 2020, and they were initially looking to increase brand awareness across the west of Scotland. We also have Allison here from Red Bus Bistro. So Red Bus Bistro, if you've not seen them, they run a lovely fleet of quirky vintage London bus restaurants, tours the cities of Glasgow and Edinburgh, allowing customers to take in the sights and sample delicious home-cooked Scottish cuisine, which is all cooked freshly on board. And it's fabulous because I have been. Alison was keen to learn about TV advertising, and she decided to inquire at the end of 2018 with us. So firstly, if I can come to Robert and Tony, what prompted you to work with the STV Growth Fund?
Well, initially we thought that TV advertising would be kind of out with our reach, like a lot of small businesses, I would imagine. But after I had seen some like kind of smaller local businesses like ourselves on, I thought I'd explore it a wee bit. And it's when I got in contact with STV that Sarah, who we've worked with, came out, spent a lot of time with us, kind of explained everything, explained about the Growth Fund, and that's where we thought you guys at STV were taking a risk by partly funding this for us as well. So we thought that made us feel a lot more comfortable with the kind of big outlay for us as a small business. If you guys were going to match it, we were going to get more out of it for that.
And I think initially at the beginning you were quite nervous, weren't you, about the creative process, where to start?
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you?
Yeah, so the creative process, it's just we're very protective of our brand, just because it is kind of a small kind of family business, so it is our bread and butter. So we wanted to get the right message out there, but again, Sarah was brilliant. She put us in contact with a great guy that managed to kind of create for us and really, really got behind our brand and our values. We were worried that they were going to want to come in and change what we were, but he actually loved our existing brand and built on it and gave us some really good tips. So no, it was really, really good for us, and it was really exciting process for us as well. The creative part of it, that's the fun part of it.
Yeah, and it was seeing your advert on TV for the first time. It still must give you that. It gives you that pride, doesn't it? It's like, wow, yeah. Look at us, we're on television. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So in terms of results, obviously, because that's the most important thing. Yeah. What has the Growth Fund done for your business?
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because we initially went on TV at the start of March this year for the first time. So looking back, obviously, that wasn't as successful because nobody was out buying and nobody was wanting to kind of make big purchases, which unfortunately furniture and beds is. So it didn't really work for us the first time, but that's because of obviously external factors. Everybody was the same in retail in most sectors, I would say. So when we came back after lockdown, we kind of chatted with STV and kind of gave that a second shot, and that was much more successful for us. So that really contributed to our recovery, if that makes sense. Yeah. So the week and the week that the TV ad went out the second time round in August, and the week after that, our kind of uplift in sales was about 50%, which for us is massive. Like year on year, it was 50%, which is unheard of. We've never done figures like that before, and it was fantastic. And it was good to have that safety net, because that was at the start of us coming back, and we had a lot of kind of making up to do, and it has helped contribute. Also, it's helped get our brand out there. So looking at the analytics on our kind of our website and our social media and stuff like that, whenever the advert was on, I would then check it after it had been on, and you could see the spikes. So you could see that it was coming from STV, because sometimes it's quite hard to quantify with people coming into the store. Yeah. But when it's kind of online, and one of the good things that kind of Sarah said to us at the start is, when people are sitting watching TV, they've always got their phone in their hand, and we could see that straight away after we had been on the TV. You could see those spikes straight away, and you could see the traffic. So that's how we knew it was STV that was doing it, and it wasn't just a kind of a spike in trade from the lockdown, because we'd had a spike in trade where people weren't able to buy, but after the advert went out, it was a lot more. So it was really successful.
That's great to hear. Thanks for that. If I could just go to Alison now. Hi, Alison. You've been a member of the Growth Fund for 1.5 years now. So what prompted you initially to get in touch with STV?
Initially, it was STV's advertising, actually. It was the constant reminder on your television that this growth fund was out here to support and make advertising approachable for small companies and new companies like mine. Mm-hmm. One of the mistakes I did make was not ringing sooner. If only we all had a crystal ball, eh? But through the advertising that STV have out there, I eventually picked up the phone, rang STV, and was allocated my fabulous account manager, Ronnie, and I started working straight away with STV. The Growth Fund is just an absolute game changer for small companies like mine's. It's established our brand, which was the intention right from the start through the advertising. It got us into people's living rooms. We knew that we had a unique concept in what we do. And although our sales were growing, it wasn't coming at the speed that I really wanted for the company. And I took the gamble and contacted STV, thinking that I wouldn't be able to afford the advertising. It is affordable, but it's not just the marketing that STV give you, it's the support, the confidence and the belief that you have a quality product, and the guarantee that they will get you into millions of living rooms. And that definitely has been my experience. And it's been a game changer to build our brand as a whole. We're recognised everywhere now, and the sales were just phenomenal right from the start. We actually, unlike Tony, had the opportunity to start pre-COVID, so we could see the spikes straight away. We have quite a unique booking system as well that lets us track absolutely every single sale, and the spikes that we have in our analytics is just second to none. So once we did the first campaign, it was a no-brainer that we were going to keep working with STV. Just came back to what Victoria said as well. I was probably one of these people that was, wow, let's get every message we've got out there. But I've learned through coercion from Ronnie, my account manager, to calm down, take the advice of professionals and go for slowly catch a monkey. And that definitely has worked for us. It's not only worked for us, it actually has single-handedly saved my business because of the success that we have building our sales, which has seen an increase of more than 60%. It gave us a budget to keep the company going since March. We've not been able to really trade apart from the last couple of months. So it gave us the budget to keep our company going when there was no money coming in, and keep not all of our staff, sadly, but keep a good proportion of our staff. So obviously I cannot speak highly enough of my experience, and the support that I've had from STV has just been phenomenal.
That's brilliant to hear, Alison. Thank you so much. I think we should end on that, end on a high there, and then open it up to any questions from the audience.
Great. Thanks, Angela, and thanks to Alison and Tony and Robert as well. Ringing endorsements there from Tony on terms of the 50% uplift, and then Alison single-handedly saving the business and getting you into millions of living rooms. Fabulous testimonials for STV's Growth Fund. So as Angela said, we're just opening up to Q&A now, guys. We're doing really well on time. We're bang on. I see Stuart Cruikshank has got the ball rolling with a question. And his question is on how do you decide where and when the adverts are shown? So for instance, Stuart's business is B2B rather than B2C. So an average client is not sitting at home necessarily watching Loose Women, for example. So how do you adjust your campaigns to accommodate a kind of B2B business like Stuart's?
Yeah. Hi there, Stuart. Yeah, that's something that absolutely we would look at doing. Most campaigns would have an element of daytime, peak and late night in them. So we would look at spreading your campaign across all the day parts. But obviously if it's B2B and it's more business people that you're wanting to reach, then we would look at your schedule with you and plan it. So we would likely be advising that we would place your spots around programs like the news. So the news at 6 o'clock, the ITV news, or even Scotland Tonight. So there are certain programs absolutely that we would look to place your program within. Everyone gets to see their schedule prior to it going out, but by the time you see your schedule, you should be really happy with it because we've planned it for you and we plan it based on the audience that you're looking to reach. Does that answer the question? Yes? Yep, great.
Stuart's happy with that. Thanks, Angela. Jim Gallagher, good to see you, Jim. Jim's asking, apologies. Jim is asking, what is the timeline from agreeing to go ahead to getting on screen? How quickly can you turn things around with clients?
Okay, well, we have turned things around very quickly in the past. Ideally, we say 6 weeks. That's what we would like to have. Victoria's laughing because she knows. We sometimes go to her and say this ad's to be on in 2 weeks' time. We have turned around ads very quickly and had people on within 3 weeks. Ideally, let's say 6, because as Victoria said, you want to think about the process, you want to think what's going to be your ad. You don't want to rush it. You know, you are going onto TV, you are going into a lot of homes. You want to get it right and we want you to be happy, so we will never rush you through. But anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks.
Great. Thanks for that. And I'm sure that answers the question for Jim. The questions are flying in now. Kate is asking a couple of things. What is the minimum budget for an effective campaign? And also, I think she was asking Alison, what can you tell us a little bit more about your business? So maybe you could give us a quick elevator pitch. But in the first instance, what does a minimum budget look like? You know?
Yeah, we get asked this quite often, and it's one of those, how long is a piece of string? It really depends what you want to do. So it depends on a lot of things. It'll depend on the area you want to advertise into. So our smallest area, for instance, is STV Dundee. So it's the sort of least expensive area to advertise in. It'll depend on your time length, because you might have a 30-second advert or a 20 or a 10-second, but we can discuss all that with you. Just to give you a straight answer, you're probably looking at a minimum for one of our smaller areas. I would be thinking you would need at least £3,500.
Yeah, and Richard, I can maybe just add on creative as well. So our entry-level production cost for an ad is £1,800.
Okay, so all in, the package is looking, just correct me if I'm wrong, but the package is looking like about 4.5 to 5
Yes, but there are, I mean, obviously clients who maybe decide to run with us more, they want to commit to longer term, then we have incentives in place there where we can maybe help with the creative. So what I would say is absolutely speak to us. We can come up with something, and we'll try and get something that works for your budget. But I would say to start with, probably you would need a minimum of 3.5 to come onto one of our smaller areas. We would never want to take £1,500 or £2,000 off you and then it doesn't work. So we would rather we didn't take that, and you know, so we can sort of serve you a campaign that's going to deliver value.
Great, thanks, Angela. And Stephen's asking, how specific can adverts go out geographically?
So, well, there's different ways you can do it. We've got the STV player, which is more targeted. So if you wanted to buy on our STV player platform, then we can target through postcode areas. If you want to do broadcast on STV, then we've got the 4 micro regions that I showed earlier. There'll be more information, I think, on our website. I'm pretty sure the map's on there. So we can advertise West, East, Aberdeen and Dundee area on broadcast.
Yeah, you really drill it down now, can't you? Which is really good. Actually, just Kate is just asking a wee supplement, and just for clarity, he was asking, is that match funded? So going back to the budget, Angela, how does the match funding work in terms of?
The match funding would be on top of that. So we would be looking for a commitment of around £3,500. And again, this is kind of just off the top of my head, because it really depends what you want to do. We're always wary of giving prices out because we want to build a campaign that's bespoke for the business. But we will work with your budgets. But no, if we were to match fund, then we would be looking at delivering a campaign value £6,000–7,000.
Okay. Yep, Kate's nodding, so happy with that answer. Thanks for the question, Kate. Erin's asking, Victoria, how has the process been making TV adverts remotely? So what particular challenges have you had in the last few months, and how easy is it now to make ads in the COVID times?
Well, it has been interesting, but we have definitely been able to pivot quite quickly and be able to adapt to that. Obviously, the restrictions that are set by the government at the moment have meant that while we can still do socially distant shoots safely, so we're back doing shoots, which is great, but they actually don't work for every client because we can't bring a lot of cast and crew in. We're being much more nimble than ever before. So some clients that works for their brand approach on TV, some it doesn't. And what we're seeing is a lot more clients moving towards motion graphics, using stock footage or animation, which I would say is no bad thing, because back to my earlier point of it making their creative a little bit more flexible. We have had clients who we've created creative for at the beginning of this year who've come back to us during the pandemic and asked us to adapt and update their creative to work in messaging that's related to COVID-19 or any changes to their business practice that they've had to make due to the pandemic. And as I say, the animation or motion graphics approach allows us to do that much more easily.
And your creative for ACO was great as well, as you were saying, showcasing the kind of Zoom, technology, being a real groundbreaker. So that was great. Quick question from Stephanie Harvey. Are there restrictions in TV advertising in Scotland for certain sectors at the moment, such as alcohol?
So alcohol is a restricted category, and that doesn't mean that you can't advertise. It just means you need to be careful in terms of what you say in your ad and how your product's presented. Scheduling restrictions apply, so your ad can't be placed around programming that has a high audience index for children or under 18s, I would say, actually, for alcohol. However, on STV, the programs that index in that way for an under 18 audience are actually really quite low. So the restrictions are something that we absolutely can navigate through scheduling, and it doesn't really have much impact. And we've worked with multiple alcohol brands now through the creative process, and our producers are very skilled in compliance and able to steer you towards what you can say and how you can present your product and away from what you can't.
That's helpful. Thanks very much. So Louise is asking, our product is relatively low value, so we need to be looking for high volume to get any ROI. How would you help us overcome this hurdle? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Well, I don't know what the product is. I don't know if you want to share that, but we can maybe have a chat about that afterwards, because it would depend on what the product is. That's why we quite like to dig in and look at something quite bespoke for you. There are many products on television that are low value. They're still on TV because they obviously see the value of the platform. I think what you have to remember when you have a lower value product is it's everything else round about it that TV is going to help work much better. So I would assume, sorry, whose question was it? Louise?
So it was Louise and Chris, and I think Chris was highlighting that it is actually the masks that they're wearing, which are the products they're talking about, Angela.
Oh, let me see.
I didn't actually recognise Chris Terrace behind that mask, but I see him now.
Oh, hi. Oh, that's fab. Right, okay, I hadn't seen that. Is this groovy face masks for COVID? Yes. So how much does it cost for a mask, Louise?
No, just talk.
Online, we do B2B and online. So we obviously, there's a wholesale price, £2.95, but our online price is £7.99. But up to it's £14.99 for silk. So it's
very nice. Looks great.
It's not a £500 mattress, you know. So
yeah, no, I can understand, and I guess that's something that you need to have a think about for your business. If you want to invest money in television, what I would say is that TV will make everything else work so much better for you. I would imagine you'll be on social, you know, Facebook, yeah. So the TV, the credibility and getting your brand name, you know, building that basis. It may be that it gets you into wholesalers. You know, I guess you've got to sort of think outside the box of what TV can bring you. It might not just be the direct sales that you need to cover the cost of your campaign, but it could bring you stockists, it could bring you investors. You know, I guess we can have a conversation about that. I think it's quite exciting.
Yeah, I would just add, from a creative point of view, we would very much want to reinforce your brand throughout any creative approach, to just for our viewers in this, you know, widespread audience that you would really have captive through a TV campaign. Make sure that when they're thinking of face masks, your brand is the first one that pops into their mind. So you know, we do that in lots of different ways, through like clever scripting, through sometimes using jingles or creating sonic idents for brands, which really stick in the viewer's mind, and they, you know, they make the brand really sink in and penetrate. But I would say also just having a really clear call to action. And again, back to my point earlier about just ensuring that the consumer journey is really clear. So if we're driving to your website, for example, that it's a really easy point of sale process, and the brand is just like fully fully fleshed out, both at your website and point of sale, and in terms of what we're pushing through the TV ads.
Great, and yeah, and having a conversation maybe at the end of the session today or in due course would be great. So thanks for the question, Louise and Chris. Stephen's got a wee follow-up question. He's asking about advertising in East Renfrewshire specifically. For example, would you recommend to advertise via the STV player as opposed to TV advertising?
It would depend on the product. So I'm not sure what the product is, but again, we would look at what it is, what the objective of the campaign is, what the product is. If it does have reach out with the area, then we would always suggest being on TV. But yes, you can absolutely. We could look at a campaign for East Renfrewshire just on the STV player. Our STV player has seen massive growth year on year, and we're buying in a lot of content now. So it's not just STV shows that we're seeing on the player. You might have seen we've been doing a lot of promotions for the player. So a lot of big dramas and Australian dramas are coming on. So our STV player growth is actually 50% up year on year, and growing daily. So yeah, the STV player definitely an option. But let's have a chat and let us know what the product is, and we can have a look and we'll build something for you.
Happy with that, Stephen?
Okay. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, excellent. Thank you. And Kate was just asking a wee supplementary to her earlier question about alcohol. Can you show people drinking if not specifically advertising it?
Yeah, you can, Kate, absolutely. The same restrictions really apply in terms of scheduling, making sure you're not appealing through the creative to an under 18 audience. You're not glamorizing drinking. And I think very importantly, if you're advertising, you know, like a bar or a restaurant and you're showing people drinking, you have to be careful to make sure that people aren't being seen to being to over consuming or binge drinking. So for example, you can't show people buying rounds for each other. You can't show people with really huge measures, or, you know, like kind of 2-pint steins and things like that. All that should be avoided.
Great. And I've just got one wee last question, and it almost goes right back to the beginning in terms of when brands are thinking about their proposition. What's the best way to start thinking about your proposition, and can you guys help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we, as I said earlier, we work with a whole range of clients, but really and I truly do mean this, the most exciting campaigns we work on and the most fun ones tend to be the ones for clients who are using the Growth Fund, these new to TV businesses who we're going through that journey with and helping them work through their brand and their proposition. So in terms of your proposition and your key message, what I would always bring it back to is thinking about what's in it for the audience and what's in it for your target audience, your target market, who you want to convert to be a consumer. So just to give you a really simple example, a lot of businesses who are new to TV, if you say to them, what's your USP? And that's what you should always be thinking about, and what differentiates you from your competitors. A lot of businesses, their absolute first go-to will be, we're a family-run business, which is really important and of course like really intrinsic and part of their brand values. But we always say, well, what does that mean for the consumer? And it does mean something. It tends to be that, you know, you're very invested in your business, that your brand values are strong, that comes through in your dedication and your customer service. But again, it's just about positioning that and, you know, highlighting that proposition that really means that a consumer should choose you over another brand. So very much, I would say, think about what your USP is and what differentiates you from your competitors.
Thank you, Victoria. Well, I just want to say a final word before I hand over to Angela for a very final comment. We've just about finished on time. Apologies, we're maybe just overrun by 2 minutes. But I have to say, I found this morning really inspiring and extremely insightful. And I want to say a big thank you to Victoria and to Angela from STV, trusted partners of Glasgow Chamber of Commerce, and we're delighted to be continuing to work with STV and the Growth Fund. But to hear the examples of Alison, Tony and Robert this morning was really, really impressive as well. And Tony talking about 50% uplift and Alison talking about a game changer and saving the business. You know, really, really strong testimonials, very powerful stuff. So we would urge you all to have a look and speak to the team at STV. I just want to say a massive thank you. We want to continue to work on this. And actually, it does make me think that maybe in the new year, we should be looking at a broad marketing type webinar and using STV as our kind of anchor partners in thinking about that. So that's a conversation we can possibly have.
That sounds good, yeah.
But thanks again to you all. Just a wee shameless plug, if you're interested, we have a mini conference event on the 11th of November. But actually it's relevant because it's some of Scotland's biggest brands who are participating. Royal Bank of Scotland have sponsored the event and their chief economist is going to be speaking at it. It's very much about how Glasgow and Scotland are dealing with COVID, the challenges businesses are facing and some of the solutions they're coming up with. But we're delighted to have Eric Proven from AGS Airports, which is the Aberdeen, Glasgow, Southampton Airports, Chief Exec speaking. We've also got Professor Sir Anton Muscatelli, Principal of Glasgow University, which interestingly has a revenue of more than Manchester United, which I remember him saying years ago, and it stuck in my head. But also, we have also got Keith Anderson, Chief Exec of Scottish Power. So some big, big Scottish brands, 4 o'clock on the 11th of November, if you can join us, it's a free event. So with that, I'll hand over to Angela, and thanks again to the team at STV, and thank you to you all for attending and for giving us some great questions and conversation. Final word for you, Angela.
Thanks, Richard. Well, I'm going to echo what Richard's just said. Thanks very much for taking the time to come and join us this morning. Really appreciate it. Please do get in touch if you'd like any more information at all, and we can provide obviously bespoke plans for you. We are very much not hard salespeople. That's not how we work. It's a consultancy-based sale. That's how STV likes to work. So please do get in touch. You can either get in touch with me through LinkedIn, or you have my details from Richard. But thanks again also to the panel guests. So thanks Alison and Robert and Tony from Sleepy Valley. And thanks so much. And it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.